Hello everyone, today on Scottish Memories we are chatting to Fred MacAulay. So how are you all? Hope you are all happy and healthy and safe out there wherever you are. Just before we get started, remember whether you are watching on YouTube or you are listening on podcast, please remember to subscribe and leave a comment. It just helps things grow. That's what it does. So more than anything in the world, please remember to subscribe. But I'm over the moon today. I'm really excited because I am genuinely a fan of this man's comedy. I am chatting to stand-up comedian Fred MacAulay. As well as being a stand-up comedian, he is a radio and TV presenter. He's also appeared on some of the most iconic television comedy shows, including They Think It's All Over, I'm Sorry I Haven't a Clue, The News Quiz, QI, Mock the Week, to name but a few. Fred, hello, how are you?
I am very well. How are you?
I'm brilliant. Thank you so much. Again, thank you so much for joining me. It genuinely means the world. I know you're busy, so thank you so much.
I'm not that busy, let's be honest.
This is kind of special for me as well because you are my 6-month anniversary of every week for 6 months speaking to another guest. So that it feels like a proud moment having you here.
Oh, that's
thank
great.
You so much.
Congratulations. That's tremendous. Number 26. I'll get that in the back of my vest sometime.
Considering I had no idea how this was going to go, the fact that it's reached this point, I'm kind of proud.
So you should be. Yeah, that's great. Great numbers.
So just before we get started, how are you? You've been good? You healthy and well?
I am healthy and I'm well. So 6 months into, well, it's more than that. I mean, it's 8 months into COVID-19. This is a big week as we're recording this. News of vaccine coming through, which is great news. And the other side of that coin is we've got 3 kids. Our youngest is 30. And he is living and working in London, and both he and his girlfriend were tested COVID positive last week.
Oh no!
So we're about seven or 8 days in, and we're just hoping that they don't get any worse. They're feeling a bit bunged up and a bit not so great, so it all feels very real to us this week, and we're very, very delighted that there is good news with the vaccine.
Yeah, well, obviously, I hope all the best in them because that's...
Yeah, they'll be fine. I mean, they're 30. I mean, it's my son lost his sense of taste and his sense of smell, and I don't know what your audience are like, but I mean, I've got to say I've discovered recently that passing wind and telling your wife that you're doing it to check your sense of smell doesn't wash anymore. She's not having that. I'm just checking I'm healthy.
It's the best excuse ever, though. Sorry, dear. I just wanted to check that you were feeling okay.
Well, you're fine.
Yeah. I have to say though, for me, I think losing my sense of taste, I'd hate that. I would absolutely hate that.
I know. So it comes back, and somebody said that vitamin D helps bring back your sense of taste and smell. I had no idea. Is it? Everybody's a pharmacist nowadays.
I know. I was watching, I think it was this morning, a day or two ago, and they were talking about vitamin D. Vitamin D's coming out a lot now that we're still, quite COVID heavy, and it's getting darker and we're not seeing the sun and we're staying indoors and you need to get vitamin D, and I'm like, we're Scottish, we never get vitamin D. What are you talking about?
I know. It reminds me of the precaution that we were given when there was a total eclipse about 5 years ago. They said to the people of Scotland that under no circumstances should you try and look directly at the sun. This was in March in Scotland. It's the only place in the world where there was a total eclipse of the sun and it got brighter.
It's scary but true.
Yeah.
Most of us were looking at the sky going, what is that thing anyway?
Yeah, exactly.
So you're a Perth lad, correct me if I'm wrong, yeah?
Yeah, well, Tony, I was brought up at Perthshire. I keep telling people it's Perthshire. My old man was a cop. And so I grew up in the most amazing places. Callander, then Killin, and then Rattray and Blairgowrie, and then finally into the metropolis of Perth. And so I finished my education at Perth Academy, but attended Killin Primary, Rattray Primary, Blairgowrie High School, and then Perth Academy. So just all around Perthshire, and it's a place that still means an awful lot to me.
Yeah, you've really sort of I mean, growing up in that sort of area, that's quite the landscape to grow up in, like
Incredible.
spectacularly.
Yeah, and it's and I'm lucky. I still travel around quite a bit, and just within the last month, drove through Killin again, and seeing the house that I spent sort of 5 years of my very early life in, and suddenly here I am, 64, and you just think, gosh, that's it. A lifetime goes past, and but Killin is beautiful. And the Falls of Dochart, I stop just about every time and have a look at the water there, and it's never the same twice.
That'll be my dogs in the background, just saying hello to you there.
I'll bring the Labradors in. We'll have a barking competition.
I was talking to, actually, last week I was talking to Grant O'Rourke from Outlander and things, and you mentioned something in there about seeing your childhood home. I don't get that, because my mum and dad are still in my childhood home.
Right.
I mean, they're in their 70s now, but the same house that I grew up in, they're still there. So when people get that nostalgia, I'm like, I can still go in it.
That's funny, isn't it? And I mean, that's maybe it's quite an old-fashioned thing for people to still be in the same place. And I guess you've got people that are watching this all around the globe. And whenever I've been in America and you speak to people, and they move, they're quite itinerant. Say, where were you brought up? So I was brought up in Pennsylvania, but I was in Florida for 6 years. Then I was in California, and then Oregon, and now I'm quite happily in Minneapolis. You just think, I thought I'd done well getting from Callander to Perth.
I went to London for a short period because I trained as an actor down there. So I lived in London for 6 years and then came back up. And I've moved about Edinburgh a little bit. I've round about there, but that's it. It's been Edinburgh, London, Edinburgh. I'm probably the least world-travelled person, living-wise, anyway.
Yeah.
So you must have some amazing memories in growing up in all these places then.
Well, I do. I mean, Callander was very early on. I think I was there. Well, we moved, I think, I would have been just about 4. So I've got some vague memories of Callander, and then quite a lot at Killin, because that's where I started school. And I can remember, I remember particularly the winters up there in Killin. Because as the policeman, my dad used to have to go out to road traffic accidents.
Yeah.
And winters were wild back in the 60s. And we had relations in Killin as well. I think it was a cousin of my grandfather's lived in Killin. And I was sort of 4 or 5 years old when we went there. And John MacLeod was his name. And I think John was in his 90s. And he was an old soldier, and he was poker straight. And people used to joke that we were best pals, me and this 90-year-old Gaelic-speaking MacLeod from Harris, because my ancestry is Western Isles. My grandfather, my dad's dad, he moved from Harris down to the mainland. So lots of memories of Killin, and odd things that I used to do as a wee boy, Tony. There was a railway line came into Killin back in those days before they closed the railway line down. And I can remember lying on the bank at the side of the railway, waiting for the steam train to go past, and then dousing the little fires from the embers that shot off the steam train. I mean, it was borderline criminal. Can you imagine wee boys just lying doing that? I mean, it's otherworldly.
Yeah, I mean, but then it's funny. I've been so lucky with the people I've interviewed, and we all seem to have a general theme through there as well. One, although it's never sort of been mentioned, health and safety as a child didn't exist.
Yes, yeah.
But these kind of things. I mean, I was born in '76, so '80s mostly for the young childhood. But it was out and about all the time, exploring. I was really lucky with the area round about. I mean, the fields would entertain us for hours, and it was a field.
Mm-hmm.
Just exploring all these nooks and crannies, and God forbid the farmer had made bales of hay, because they were getting destroyed. You know what I mean? You were always climbing over that sort of thing. So, I mean, playing with the embers of a steam engine, that's properly unique.
Oh, it is. And I did a show at, I did a show at every Fringe for 30 years, but I did it once, and I took photographs of my primary 1 and primary 2 school books. Now, when you were learning to write back in the 60s, you had to do a news story every day, just about what you were up to. And you wrote just a couple of sentences and then drew a picture. And I took photos of that, and then I got that put onto a computer, and then we showed it up on a big screen. And I mean, I was an inveterate liar at the age of 5 and 6. I mean, I just came up with all kinds of fantasies about things that I'd been doing. You know, a Monday morning, I would tell a story about having been fishing for 2 days over the weekend. That's just not true.
Yeah.
You know, places that I'd visited. I mean, at the age of 6, I managed to spell correctly the word Carnoustie.
Wow.
Telling people that I'd been to Carnoustie.
I couldn't spell that now.
Yeah, I'd never been anywhere near Carnoustie. But so I was a little fantasist, I guess.
But one of those things.
And some of the memories, thankfully, I don't have. One of which my late mother used to recount was the time that I cycled my tricycle into the River Dochart.
Oh.
Now, if you know the speed with which the water goes through that bridge, how I'm still here is a mystery.
That must have been. I mean, were you on your own?
I guess I must have been, but I mean, I've got no memory of it at all. But I'm assured that I did, and she fortunately was there to pull me out.
Did the tricycle make it?
But one that I do remember is my mum used to get a little payment from the police force for cleaning the cells at the back of the police station in Killin.
Well, there's a job.
And I was just at the height where I could reach up and slip the bolt. And she was in one of the cells, and I reached up, closed the door, and slipped the bolt. And she was stuck in there till my dad came home.
That's brilliant.
I don't know why.
There's not very many people who can say they put their mum in prison.
No, there was no trial either. I was judge, jury, and jailer.
That's it. You can get out if you give me a biscuit.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was when you were talking about there going into the river. Obviously, as I mentioned, we've got a little one right now, 6-week-old, and it's been bringing stories from my mum and dad about me as a youth. So much more having a baby in the area. And they were talking about, we were down, I think it was Bournemouth, they said, for a wee family holiday. And for some reason, there was a pond full of tadpoles. And apparently I went, I want to play with the tadpoles at about 4 years old, and just walked in.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, it was absolutely. I was very lucky as well. We had you kind of sort of started to mention as well how all the old train tracks are gone and things, but there was an area beside us that was a kind of a valley, and it used to be an old mining line. It long since closed, but it was a coal mining train line for just moving it, and it was just essentially a valley now. And it was always you could always go up and down these and find somewhere a Tarzan swing.
Yeah.
You know, God knows whoever climbed up these trees and where they got this big rope from all the time and put it up, but guaranteed somewhere up there would be a Tarzan swing, and all the time we were down there all the time.
Yeah.
It's just some of these things that you think, it's a shit. I don't know how much that happens nowadays. You know what I mean? They'll all be in playing PlayStation.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, some of the places we walk our dogs, there is somebody's built a bike track. But I mean, we were there the other day, and it's unused. It's getting grown over, and so it must have been maybe 2 or 3 years ago. There were some kids in the village who were quite keen on getting their bikes out and actually going through the woods and building jumps and stuff like that. But they've obviously moved on, and that it doesn't get used anymore. No, but there was a couple of big rope swings there. Pop through and visit. You can relive your youth.
Absolutely. I would absolutely still do it now. I mean, my
Yeah,
wife would give me a round, so you got to break
yeah,
your neck, and she's probably right, but I'd
yeah.
still give it a go. So growing up then, obviously you travelled a lot growing up and living in areas. What about holiday-wise? Was it round Scotland a lot, or just
No,
no?
no. I mean, I think I was about 10 before we had the first family holiday.
All right, okay.
So, I mean, I don't know what the economics were back in the day, but I mean, mum and dad had my brother when mum, I think, was 22. Dad would have been about 23. So, they started the family pretty early.
Not
So,
uncommon, though, not
no,
uncommon
no,
back
not at
then. No,
all.
no.
And then, so there's nearly 4 years between my brother and I, and then another 4 years and a bit between me and our wee sister.
Right.
So that was it wasn't quite the nuclear family that you have now, but there was 3 kids spaced out over these 4.5 years.
That feels like 4 years exactly too. It feels like a choice. It's like, right,
Yeah,
that one's
yeah.
at a good age and can look after itself now. We can have another one now.
Next, exactly. So a police constable's wages wouldn't have been very much.
No.
And when we were living, by this time we were in Rattray, I would have been, I think I was in primary 6 or thereabouts. And we managed through a friend of my dad's to get the loan of a cottage in Johnshaven up in the East Coast. And it was 1966. It was World Cup year because there was a wee television in the cottage and we watched the World Cup. Now, it's significant because I'm talking about the economics, but the MacAulays didn't actually have a TV at that stage. So I was 10, and this was the first time that we'd had a TV that we could actually watch. And we got our own very soon after that, but it was a magnificent holiday, brilliant sunshine every day. If you look back at the World Cup in 1966, and goodness knows the English are quite keen on showing it.
I think they've mentioned it once or twice. Yeah,
you'll see that the weather was scorching.
you're absolutely right.
So,
When you do think about those
Yeah.
images, and you're right, it's never off TV. Any
I think there was
chance
a-
for them to mention it, they'll mention
Yeah.
it. But yeah, beautiful sunshine.
And the other thing, Tony, is that at the age of 10, I supported England because I didn't know that Scotland had a football team. Right? I honestly didn't know there was a national side. I knew about St Johnstone, I knew about Arbroath and club teams, but it didn't dawn on me that there was a national side until a couple of years later. But anyway, so Johnshaven was the first family holiday, and then we moved places with a couple in Johnshaven, then Cullen up near Banff. We were there a couple of times, and that was pretty much it. What then happened was Mum and Dad in the very late 60s, they, by which time, we were into our teens, my wee sister would maybe have been about 11 or so, they started to go to Mallorca, but on their own.
Right.
We'd be left at home with an auntie or an uncle who would come and look after us for a couple of weeks, and they went off to Mallorca for a holiday. And let's be honest, they were still in their 30s. They were still pretty youthful, and they'd brought up 3 kids. They deserved a break.
I can remember that. It's quite an independent thing. I'm what I call a lonely child. There's only me. But there was a certain thing that I think probably the last holiday I went with my mum and dad, barring my mum and dad coming to our wedding because we got married in Disney World. My wife is a Disney fanatic. And I proposed there as well, actually. And the first words out our mouth after yes was, "We have to get married here." And I was like, "Damn it!" I thought this would have been enough. But I can remember the first holiday they went without me, probably when I was about 15, 16, and it properly felt liberating.
Yeah.
Properly like, yes, I have the house.
Yeah.
I won't have a party. I'm terrified in case everything gets damaged, but I have the house.
I did have one trip away, Tony. I've just remembered. In 1969, I went with the Scouts to Switzerland. So that, I was going to say I didn't have another holiday until I was, at university, but I did. I went to Switzerland with the Scouts, And that was 1969. And again, memories keep flooding back, and we've just passed last year the 50th anniversary of the landing on the moon. And me and the rest of the boys from the 57th Perthshire Scout watched it on a TV in the window of a sort of the equivalent in Switzerland of radio rentals in 1969.
That's very cool, though. That's very cool. I had a school trip to Holland, and my mum likes to say now, I mean, we were only about 14, 15, and we were in some village in the middle of nowhere. I can't remember the name of it. It wasn't like it was in Amsterdam or anything like that. But it was all very organised, and all the activities with the school and everything. But even now, my mum says, that time you went to Holland when you were about 15, I still haven't heard any stories. Apparently, I was the only one from the entire trip that never phoned home.
Is that right?
I never phoned home for the week, and then when she got home, she went, "How was it?" And I was like, "Yeah, it was great."
Yeah.
That was all she got.
End of story.
Yeah,
That's great.
They never got, it wasn't as if anything bad happened. I just was like, yeah, it was great. Yeah, it was great. That was it.
Our youngest went on a rugby trip to Holland, and we're going to Amsterdam, and so he's about 12 years old, and we're going, now, got to tell you, there's some places in Amsterdam we don't want you to go. He said, Dad, I know all about the Red Lake district. That's fine.
Can't stand those red lakes.
I'm not going to disabuse him of that knowledge.
So you mentioned that obviously you've played the Fringe for past 30 years, did you say?
Yeah.
Skipping this year, unfortunately, which the town was hit bad by that. It was honestly a ghost town here.
I came through, Tony, to do a wee bit of filming for Karen Corn and Katie for the Gilded Balloon on what would have been the first week of the Fringe, and honestly, I was close to tears to see Edinburgh like that in August, and it's been the biggest part of my career is the Fringe. It's been it's been the touchstone every year, and to come through and see Edinburgh without the posters, without the crowds. And it was still technically locked down then. I think I managed to get through because it was deemed essential work, but and it wasn't really. But man, it was heartbreaking. So
I didn't do it a lot, but I did go out for my daily exercise. One day I just took the camera and I did a nice walk around town, and honestly walking up and down the Royal Mile. Dead quiet. When I heard it was midday, and I heard the chimes of St Giles, plus the chimes at the Tron Kirk at the same time, and I swear I stood in the middle and I went, I didn't know they both had chimes, because it's usually that busy that I knew St Giles had chimes, but I did not know the Tron Kirk had chimes. I was like, I have never heard the two of them at the same time. Ever before.
Uncanny, isn't it?
Yeah, it really was. It really was. But with the Fringe, obviously 30 years, it's a special time, isn't it? It must be special if it's keep pulling you back like that.
It is, and it's what I was going to say was, even though it was dead, I did half expect to get flyered. I just expected some leap out of a court.
Please come and see my show.
2:30. Essex School.
I had the best piece of flyering ever done to me a few years ago. It was two people standing on bollards beside each other, just beside St Giles, and I walked past one guy and he went, "Sorry mate, can you just give that to him?" And he gave me a flyer. I wasn't thinking, you know what I mean? I went, "Yeah, okay." And I went to the second guy and he went, 2:00 at this place. And I went, "Yeah, well done,
Brilliant.
well done. You got me there. That was brilliant."
Yeah, that's innovative, isn't it? I mean, it's as I said, I used the word touchstone, and comedy, by the fact that we're all individuals and stand-ups, we are a community, Tony, and we the great thing about the Fringe is seeing other people, socialising with them, running new material past your pals gives you the biggest thrill. seeing one of them in the audience is a thrill. Going and seeing other people and being appreciative of what they do, and it's kind of vital to what we do, and the Zoom gigs and such like that have been happening this year, the hybrid things, they're all right, but for goodness sake, there's nothing quite like the immediacy of the laughter that we get. And I've always said that comedians don't do it because they want to be liked. I think they do it because they need to be liked. It's an essential thing. People think that the laughter that we get is just something that, the applause is recognition of what we do. But I think it's much deeper than that. I think it's a necessity. And that's why a lot of comedians are fragile beings, It's so much talked about mental health. I'm very fortunate. I mean, you know how old I am and how long I've been doing stand-up. I had a very different career up to the point where I decided that it was time for a change. So I thank the years that I spent in that and given me a stability. But you look at the kids that have been doing nothing but stand-up, and now suddenly that rug's been pulled from their feet. And I cannot wait for Fringe 21, all being well, and just getting them together and, enjoying each other and enjoying the Fringe.
Yeah, and the crowds have been missed. But like I mentioned to you before as well, I performed for many years until I kind of took a step back. And it's probably in part why I started the channel as well. Apart from my love for sharing Scotland and Edinburgh and all those things, it was that creative need to do things and get something out there, and without being egotistical in any way, the getting that response back is what drives me to keep it going.
Yeah,
it really is. It's that connection, be it through a computer screen, be it through people leaving comments or messages or anything like that. It is. You're right. It is that there is a need there.
Yeah,
like
by
the time I started this, I hadn't performed for about 3 years, probably about 2-3 years since I'd been on a stage or I'd sang or in front of a crowd or anything. And I think I was going a little bit stir crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I just needed some sort of creative outlet.
Aye.
It is something that drives you, isn't it?
And do you think that this will be the catalyst for you going on and doing something else then?
I would love to. I would love. At some point, I'd love to dust off the old acting shoes again. I miss singing in front of a crowd. Like, it hurts. It actually almost physically hurts that I haven't sung in front of a crowd for almost 6 years. And I actually have I've got a dream. I was talking to Andy Gray. Has been brilliant. He did one of these a little while ago. I've spoke to all the sort of Edinburgh panto crowd. They've all been great, but Andy has been brilliant because he has helped me get other interviews beautifully. He helped me get Jason Connery and Jordan Young, and he's organised for me to do an interview with Colin McCready as well. He's been really kind. But I've said to him that I have a dream of, I think this would translate really nicely to a studio space where just me and a guest and just chatting and reminiscing. I think it'd be almost like an evening with sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it would translate beautifully. How I'll ever manage to get it organised, I don't know. But I would love to do that.
I've done, as you maybe know, I do an In Conversation at the Edinburgh Fringe. It's a lunchtime chat show, and then we continue doing that on a sort of Sunday evening throughout the year. And I think I've had Andy and Grant on together 3 times, and it's a Grant Stott, that is, for those that are watching. And they're 2 of the sort of threesome that you mentioned, the King's Panto, along with Alan Stewart. And it's like blue touch paper and retire. They are phenomenal. And Andy, I've got a deep respect for and a huge fondness. He's Perth born and bred. I don't think he ever...
Yeah, he gave me a row at first because I thought he was Glasgow. He gave me a row at first.
Did he?
Was like, no.
No. And I bless him. He's come through a serious illness, and he's a top bloke. He really is, and brilliantly funny. But the three of them together, I mean, they've become icons.
They really have. They've done something special at the Kings.
Yeah.
They really have. They really
I saw Alan Stewart. I saw his Royal Variety performance thing online just a few days ago, and Alan's what is he? 60 years in the business. I mean, Alan's
something like that.
He
But
doesn't. I think he's past 70.
Yeah,
and
he was telling me some
brought
incredible
the house
stories.
down.
Yeah. He was telling me, like, it's a great interview with him that I did actually, because he was talking about, we're kind of going on a tangent here, but who cares? He was talking about how when he was young, when he was like a young lad, singing in Glasgow in the pubs and clubs at like 13, 14, 15, and then Glasgow Council got wind of this, that there was a 13, 14-year-old singing in the clubs, and they banned him.
Oh,
so his dad started to go, right, we'll go through to Edinburgh. And they used to come through to Edinburgh instead.
Is that right?
14, 15. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
You can't beat a council, eh?
No, that's true. That's true. So what is it that keeps pulling you back to the Fringe then?
It's part of the creative process. It encourages you to write, to come up with new stand-up wherever you can. And for me, it's a chance to work 4 weeks in a row, 28 nights pretty much, 25, 26, 27 nights. And there's so many extra gigs as well. You can do the best of Scottish comedy at the Stand. You can do composite gigs. You do the late night ones. You do the midnight shows at the Assembly, all of that kind of stuff. And it's really, no matter how old you are and how long you've been in the game, you always get better the more gigs that you do, and that's what the Fringe is. It's and for Scottish comics, it's the ideal opportunity, And I've been fortunate that I've made a bit of a name and I've got a bit of a following, and it's it's viable. It's to use a word that the current Chancellor doesn't think pertains to entertainment. Is viable.
It's painful, that, isn't it? It's painful to hear when he said that. Yeah.
I mean, he gave me a loan, so if he doesn't think I'm viable, he's not going to get his money back. You're dealing with an old accountant here, Richie.
You're bound to be the same as me. I've got so many friends up and down the country that when they said, it's an unviable business, unviable job, you all need to retrain. You're like, that's I know we're really on a different subject now, but it was painful to hear.
I've had an association for a few years with Scottish Ballet.
I didn't know you were a ballerina. That's lovely.
Oh, you've never seen my legs, Tony. But so I help out with their fundraising, and it's you don't bang your own sort of charity drum, but it's when they came and asked if I would host their fundraising events, absolutely, and Aileen, my wife, was going, oh, you're going to do a fundraising event that 20 to 30-year-old ballerinas are going to be at. I can read you like a book, MacAulay, right? Yeah. But when that advert was re-shown about, I can't remember the name that they used, but there was going to be, for a ballerina, that she would be... Fatima's next job is going to be in cyber. She just doesn't know it yet.
Yeah.
I got messages from a couple of the people that work for Scottish Ballets as dancers telling me that, some of them had been in tears most of that day. Just how fickle it is, and that I don't want to get too worthy about this, but in comedy, there's a lot of young Scottish comics who haven't worked for 8 months or more, and who are now seeking employment elsewhere. And whether they come back to comedy is a moot point, and I sincerely hope that they do. Once the gigs start up and working again. But when you look at something that's an art like ballet dance, you've got kids that have trained all through their school, They've trained through college and university, and all they were looking for, the target that they had in mind, was to get a job working as a dancer for one of the many ballet companies that there are around the country and the world. And that hasn't happened. And this is at a critical stage in their career. So they're not going to be dancing coming out of university and college. They're not going to have any place to rehearse. They're not going to have any place to practice and improve their skills. And I fear that they're lost to the art completely.
Yeah. No,
if they're unemployed for 2 years, they're going to think, well, I need to find something else.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you. 100% with you. I'm all when the King's, obviously Capitol Theatre's going into real trouble.
Yeah.
I reached out to them and I was like, I mean, I've been fortunate. They've reposted some of the videos with interviews that I've done of the guys from the Panto. So I just thought I'd reach out and say, look, if I can help in any way. They fortunately didn't need me to do anything. I was like, I will do it, because these places need our help.
Absolutely.
It really is one of those things that when all of this is said and gone, when all this is done, which it will be sometime, the first thing we'll all want to do is get together.
Yeah.
And we'll want to have fun, and we'll want to laugh, and we'll
human nature. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we need these places to be there, and we need that live entertainment. We're completely on a different subject, but it's important to say that. It's important to say.
Yeah.
If someone was going to come anywhere, like I mentioned to you before, I'm very fortunate that people watch the channel and listen, because this goes out on podcast as well. They listen all over the world. A lot of Americans, Canadians, Australians, Europeans who are expats. Get a lot of expats who left when they're young age, and never been back, or people with Scottish heritage and things, and they're just planning on coming over for the first time. What would be your words of advice for coming to Scotland for the first time?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, big one,
we're still very much a clan-based society. Everybody will have somewhere or other ancestry in Scotland, and I think that's if you can find out where your roots are, go and visit where the family was. If you're a MacAulay, come over. I think there's MacAulays down in Dumfriesshire originally, but I mean we're all over the country just now. But go up to the Western Isles. That's well worth the trip. Get out to Harris or Lewis. I'm afraid that there's a 95% chance that you might have some damp weather, but the other 5%, you will see sunshine and white sands and blue sea that you would think you were in the Caribbean or Caribbean, depending on where you're listening from. So go and see someplace that is remote like that. Go and see some of the big cities. Edinburgh in particular, our capital city, beautiful architecture. Hard to believe that the City of Architecture and Design was given to Glasgow over Edinburgh. But if you're in Glasgow, look up and you'll see some stunning architecture. And of course, design-wise, we're very proud of Charles Rennie Mackintosh and some of the buildings that he has around and still standing in Glasgow. Sadly, not the art college just now, but that will be rebuilt. Yeah. See the big cities, and then some of the places that I've mentioned, Killin, Callander. I didn't ever live there, but one of my favourite places is Dunkeld, and just driving up the A9 through Burnham, Dunkeld, you'll see landscape that looks like British Columbia in miniature. Beautiful trees, beautiful, just the shape of the hills. And people are often astonished that we have a ski industry in Scotland. I've skied in Scotland since I was 10 years old. There's 5 ski areas: Cairngorm, Glenshee, Anachmore, the Lecht, and Glencoe, and I've skied them all. And again, if you're over here in the winter, don't bring your skis because there might not be snow, but you never know. Get up in the hills and be safe. I mean, Tony, never a weekend goes by without somebody being inappropriately dressed on a Scottish hill. Yeah. If you're in your vest and pants, don't venture up Ben Nevis. That's my advice. And of course, not only a skier, I'm a golfer as well. So bring your clubs. We've got some of the best courses in the world.
The best courses in the world. Let's be honest. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
It's funny.
You might even bump into an ex-president on one of them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is talking about the skiing. Obviously, at the Pentlands here, we've got the dry ski slope
Of course.
on the Pentland Hills there as well. And growing up, I had no idea what that was. No idea what it was. Not so much during the day, because I don't really remember seeing it. But at night time, it's always lit up really well.
Yeah.
And from a certain angle, at least the angle that I can always remember it, it kind of looked like it kind of sort of went up and then out. Like
yes.
It looked that sort of shape in the light, in the angle. To me, for years, I thought it was some sort of weird big merry-go-round sort of thing that I wasn't allowed to go on.
Oh, man.
Because I was a kid and I was stupid, you know.
Yeah. It's amazing how you can... can I tell you something, Tony? This is a story that I was had to recount the other day, and the people really enjoyed it. So I'm 14 years old. We're now living in Scone. My dad's working in Perth. And I get a job in an Italian cafe in Princess Street in Perth, Dino's Cafe. I'm the sandwich boy, right? I have to butter the rolls and do the dishes. And it must have been December, right? So I'm 14 years old. Do you know what I want for my Christmas? I want an air rifle. It's never going to happen, right?
You'll shoot your eye out.
What do you need? Yeah. So I keep bleating on that I want an air rifle. And that if I'm not going to get it for my Christmas, I'll save up my money and buy an air rifle. So I'm working in the cafe, and I look out at the cafe at one point, and I see my dad walking down Princess Street to his car, and he's got a bag over his shoulder, and there's what can only be an air rifle barrel sticking out the top of the bag. And I ran out and I looked and I saw it, and I was 100% convinced that they'd relented and I was getting an air rifle. And this is just like you imagining the merry-go-round on the hill. Yeah. I was imagining this air rifle. I was going to go home and see it getting wrapped up. I get home and I see my dad putting up a new curtain rail. But in my mind, for 2 hours, I was the recipient of an air rifle.
Yeah, it's funny what the brain does sometimes, doesn't it? Here's this story is... My mum is going to kill me for telling this story, but my dad tells this story with regularity, and every time I tell people, they're just like, that's brilliant. Like I said, Mum and Dad are still in the same house that I grew up in, and they were in it for quite a few years when before I came along. One of the earliest days they were in there, they're in bed one morning, and this noise starts, this like, kung, kung, gung, 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 gung noise. And they both wake up, and my mum's like, oh, what's that? What's that? What's that? And my dad goes, sleepy, waking up all, not sure what's going on, sleepy. It's a plane. It's a plane. The engines of the plane's, there's a plane going to crash into the house, because he thought it was this plane engine. Stop. So he's panicking as he hear this kung, 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 kung. Then all of a sudden it stops. No sound whatsoever, and that's it. He's like, that's it. That's it. The plane stopped. The engine. I've got to get you out. I've got to get you out of the house. And he picked up my mum and he took her over to the window on the second floor, and he tried to throw her out the window. He said, "You've got to get out. You've got to get out of the house. I've got to get you out of the house." So my mum's holding onto the window, going, "You can't throw me out the window. I've got to get you out." And this went on for a couple of minutes until eventually the plane did not crash into the house, and he calmed down. He put her down. It turned out it was the water boiler. It was the water boiler kicking on, and I think,
oh man,
he's always imagined the police come around and say, "So, why did you throw your wife out of the window?"
I thought it was an airplane. Oh man, that's yeah.
Just to finish off, I like to go with what I call difficult questions for us Scots.
Okay.
Shortbread or tablet?
Shortbread.
Well, that was quick. Straight in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, like no ifs, ands, shortbread. Tablet too sweet.
I like tablet, but it's shortbread for me. Yeah, absolutely.
Was that a gran recipe? Was it something?
My mum, my dear old mum's Moira Erskine's shortbread has been published many times. it's Sue Lawrence, the cook.
Yeah.
Sue Lawrence has got Mum's recipe. I think it's in his mum, Moira MacAulay.
That's very cool.
I was at university with Sue, and whenever there's a charity gets in touch and says, "Can you give us a recipe?" My mum's shortbread goes in, and my wife can make it just as well as my mum used to.
Nice. That's nice. So that's a nice tradition to go down, because it was my gran. I've said this a couple of times as well. It was my gran that used to make shortbread and tablet, and my wife Kirsten. It's the same, her gran, but neither of my mum nor her mum makes shortbread or tablet. And we've been telling them, there's a granddaughter now. They need a granny that makes shortbread or tablet.
Yeah.
And the two of them are
going.
like, I'll get on that.
The big thing was the tray. When my mum passed away, the tray went to my sister. The tray that it was always made on. So we thought that was maybe the secret of it, and I think it is. It's a big part of it. But that was one of the great family heirlooms in the MacAulay house, was the tray that the shortbread was made on.
Probably some of the best memories. The tray's coming out. There it is. It's ready. Iron brew or whiskey?
Oh gosh, I hate to sound like I'm not patriotic, but I'm going to go whiskey. I'm not an iron brew drinker, and I'm not a whiskey drinker either. But I have bought a cask of the Harris whiskey. They built a distillery up in Harris, and it's just a few miles from where my grandfather was born. So I thought I better buy some whiskey. So I've actually got it. Can I show you this?
Yeah,
see this?
absolutely.
So Tony, this arrived just the other day. The Harris Distillery. This spirit has been drawn from your personal cask after 4 years, and
your personal
look
cask.
at this beautiful bottle.
Wow.
The seal isn't broken because and there they are. It's got Fred Macaulay's cask number 180. Brilliant. And I don't drink whiskey, but both my sons do. So if, God willing, we all get together at Christmas time, I'm going to crack that open, and the boys can get a dram.
That's lovely. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
So you've got being a cask. I'm assuming there's more there for you as well.
Oh,
your personal cask.
There'll be a couple of 100 bottles, I think. Yeah.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
There you are.
Because obviously now in Edinburgh we've got the first whiskey distillery open in Edinburgh, and for the first time in almost 100 years, the Holyrood Distillery. And I think they're still like 2 years away from their first whiskey, because it has to be at least 3 years old. That's
exactly right. Yeah. So this is 4, and I intend to maybe try and leave it. You can draw on it as often as you like, but you pay up front for 2 draws. And I was thinking I might wait for 10 years or maybe 15 or something like that. But that's being ambitious.
That's lovely, though. That's nice. That's a proper nice heirloom there. That's lovely.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
Did you see the thing a little while ago? There was a guy that he'd bought his son 18-year-old whiskey every year.
I did.
He'd done it for it was a fair amount of years. I want to say about 20 years he'd done it.
Yeah.
And then, till he was about 18, and then he had all these beautiful unopened bottles of 18-year-old whiskey, obviously one of them now being 36 years old, and he sold them and bought a house.
That's a fantastic story. I loved it.
Brilliant, isn't it? It's brilliant.
Loved
it. Square sausage or black pudding?
Black pudding, please.
Yeah? Not a square sausage fan? Because
when
I was chatting to Barbara Dixon, she swears by them.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Again, the black pudding from the Western Isles, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
But if I was at my golf club, before going out for a round of golf, people will maybe have a bacon roll or a roll and sausage. I have what the staff laugh at me because I asked for the vegan special, which is black pudding and fried egg.
Yeah, those vegans will love the black pudding, I can imagine.
And can I say any vegans watching, it's just a joke.
Yeah, it's all right. My wife's vegetarian. It's It's absolutely fine. Last but by no means least, and this is the one that a lot of people don't like: tunnocks, tea cakes, or caramel wafers.
Oh, michty me, caramel wafers.
They're starting to take the lead. Tea cakes were a strong leader, but caramel wafers have definitely come up strong from behind.
I mean, and I can just picture myself going to the fancy biscuit tin, and if there's a wafer and a tea cake in it, it's going to be the caramel wafer. Probably because it lasts a wee bit longer.
That's what I was going to say. I think the tunnocks tea cake's good, but you don't get much filling from it.
No. I've been fortunate. I've been round the tunnocks factory and I've seen them being made. What an experience! I mean, just gazillions, and what a piece of again. That's another iconic Scottish thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it
the
really
tunnocks
is.
Tea cake. Oh man,
it really is
brilliant. Remember at the opening of the Commonwealth Games, there was the tunnock tea cakes and all the rest of it.
They were dancing with the big tunnocks tea cakes on their head, weren't they?
Yeah, if I'm having a cuppy, it's going to be with a caramel wafer.
I was supposed to be one of the performers in that.
Oh man!
I was supposed to be one of the dancers for that because I went for it and then I got it. And then I, at the same time, I got a job at, the Jam House on Queen Street.
Yes, Queen Street, yeah.
I started hosting a Scottish show there.
Oh, wow.
A Spirit of Scotland show that I did for about a year. So I got that, and I was like, well, that's a paying gig. I ended up doing that for 6-7 months, so I had to turn down the Commonwealth Games one, and they kept phoning me. They kept phoning saying, look, are you sure you can't do it? Are you sure you can't do it? And I was like, I can't. And now, I mean, I loved the Scottish gig because it actually what paid for us to buy our dogs. It got our dogs, so it means a lot. But not performed at the Commonwealth Games at Glasgow is like, damn it.
I know. What a great time that was.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
It really was. Fred, this has been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for
sharing your time.
I've loved the chat,
Tony. It's been great.
It genuinely means the world. And plus, thank you for being my 6th-month anniversary interview as well. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And I'll keep watching.
That was lovely. Genuinely enjoyed talking to Fred. He's such a genuine. He's another one. I know I've said this about a lot of guests, but he's just genuinely lovely and friendly. It was a real pleasure to chat to him. He's someone who I've seen on TV for years, and he always makes me laugh. So it was such a joy to get to chat to him. I hope you've enjoyed that today. As always, if you have, please remember to give us a like, leave a comment, but most of all, remember to subscribe. Keep yourself safe out there. Till next time, bye humans.